Hello and welcome back to day two. Right. Today I'll be sharing a couple things I noted from the book I just finished reading, and that was the book on showing your work by Kleon. I still did not get to figure out the author's name, but yeah, I'll be fine. So for now, let's go with Austin Kleon. I'll find out what exactly. Oh, I think I got it right. Austin Kleon. I and my black book against the world. So a couple of things Austin Kleon basically shared on 10 ways or 10 things to pay attention to in sharing your work. And one of the first things I noted here is the fact that you do not need to be a genius to share what it is you have to share, right? He put it in the sense that greatness or creativity comes more of in an ecosystem. If you see it that way, there would not exactly be the pressure to think that, oh, you have to wait for something special, something spectacular from heaven or whatever you believe in to fall on you, but rather looking at the ecosystem of creators or people who are doing the same thing you're doing or similar things, or just even general humanity, right? Creativity springs up from the idea of people supporting each other, sharing each other's work, learning from each other, and even stealing from each other in a sense. So basically, by being a part of that ecosystem, you get to see what exactly people are doing, you get to learn from them, you get to pick up stuff from them, you get to see what gaps are being left out and where exactly your uniqueness fits into the entire scope of things. And that just gives you sort of like the clarity on how to fit into the whole system. So do not just always think of creativity or that big thing as something that would come entirely in isolation to what you're doing, right? But look at picking on what is in the ecosystem of geniuses, as it were, around you, right? He called it the seniors. Looking into that ecosystem, learning from them, and then pitching in your own peculiarity. And it's basically the idea of you finding your voice by joining the choir, right? So you just might never really find your voice until you come into that gathering, as you were, of people who are doing similar things you're doing, and it has a way of even spawning inspiration. And it almost seems as if that was in isolation, but really the inspiration might not be directly from what they said, but just being in that environment can spark things up. So do not exactly see creativity or your work in isolation. Be part of a seniors. That would go a long way in helping you contribute meaningfully to the whole ecosystem of value that is being provided. Second thing I noted here is the fact that you should be fine with being an amateur, and I think this is something that cannot be overemphasized. And I like to see it in the sense of every single person is an amateur in a sense, and amateurness, as it were, is simply a function of relativity. How do I mean? You could see someone as professional, right? But you're seeing that person as professional is based on the standard of what you've been exposed to. Someone else who has been exposed to a higher standard will see that as not exactly the best, right? So at every point in time, if we're to have an ideal spectrum of professionalism, or if we have an ideal spectrum of the completeness of knowledge, I do not think there's one person that fits into that full embodiness of completeness, right? So having that in mind and seeing that my level of professionalism is just in a spectrum, and we are just at different levels as amateurs, because there will never be a point that you get to where you'd not exactly be needing to learn something. No matter how many years you've done it for, no matter the level of professionalism you have attained, there would always be something new to learn. There will always be something new to come across. There would always be a new way to approach things. So at every point in time, everybody's learning something, and holding that mind of being a consistent learner helps you overall, helps you not get to a point where you plateau, but getting to see and understand that I am an amateur working on improving and sharing my work as I go along the way, and bringing people into the whole beautiful process of what I'm doing. And having that mindset helps you to see that because of that spectrum of amateurism, where no matter how unprofessional, in quotes, your work might be, there just might be someone that will be providing value to. Yes, if the level of professionalism is really low on the spectrum, the number of people just decreases, but there would be somebody who would be helped by that seeming level of amateurism. If I'm not exactly sure if that's a word now, but let's just go with it. There'll be somebody who will be helped by that level, and that just for the person might be a helpful step in their journey on seeing the spectrum of how growth occurs, and then the person is able to appreciate higher level professional work when they see it. So do not be afraid to start at the level where you are. Be confident starting out as an amateur, basically. Next thing I noted, we've talked about sharing your stuff. We've talked about you don't have to be a genius. We've talked about starting out as an amateur. So when exactly do you start? And as an answer to that question, I think a good time to start would be when you're dead. Yeah, you could start then. Yeah. And good thing is that time is just not as far off as you think it is. Not because you're dying anytime soon or anything like that, but because time flies really fast. So when to start? Time is going. There's a lot of things happening. You do not have, as it were, all the time in the world to get something done. So if you know this is something I should be sharing, you know this is something I should be doing, then get on to doing it. Like, are you waiting for permission from someone to get on, or what exactly are you waiting for? So when exactly should you do it? Get onto it and start putting out that thing you're doing. The whole point of getting you to see that you do not exactly have to wait for self-inspiration, as it were, but can draw forth inspiration from the seniors around you. All that is to push you to start out immediately. Get to it. Right, so the idea is time passes, and the more you put off something, the lesser time you are giving the possibility for you to show that thing to the world. So the earlier you start, the earlier you are able to grow in that, and the earlier you are able to start providing value to people, and the longer, as it were, you'll be able to provide that value, right? So let's say you start when you're 50 and you probably die at 75 or something. You just supply 25 years in value, right? That could be a lot, but if you started out earlier, 30, right, you would have maybe 45 years of value now provided, and in that 45 years of progress, you would have a lot more value, as it were, towards the end of your life, because you've spent, you have a 20 years head start over someone who took a lot of time, right? That's not to say that there's a point where it gets too late to start. There's never a point that's too late to start. If this is getting to you, then get to it and get started, right? But do not wait for stuff to push you. It's a privilege that you get to spend a piece of your lifetime doing something. And in subsequent, I think we'll have to do this in parts, because I will not be able to cover a lot of things I noted, but it just makes sense that if there's something to do, right, get on it. There's no point pushing it off. There's no point. Funny enough, I think I'll just go over and over again if I try to talk about this, but you cannot spend your life keep pushing things off. It's a cycle that you do not want to see the end of. So if there's something on your mind, if there's something, and I believe everybody has that, if you do not have something to push out there, start documenting your life. It could be helpful to someone too. It's something your children or people around you could look to many years from now. You just could never tell who that would affect, right? And the whole, I don't think I want to jump the points I noted, but basically the idea is starting now. Right? Time is short and time passes. You really want to get to it. Okay, there's a fourth point here, but I think I'll just stop at this third point. And he noted that reading obituaries is just to be an important point that to push you to get things done, because you get to see that your obituary in the end is something you start writing now, and getting to read obituaries just calls your attention to the fact that, hey man, the people whose obituaries you're reading were alive at some point, right? But if I'm reading this, they are no longer here, and definitely there will come a time where someone else will be reading my obituary. And what exactly would they be reading of me? What they'll be reading of me is something I have the opportunity and privilege to write in the now. So my obituary is not something that is written at the point of my death. Yes, it's written at my death, but in the actual sense of it, I start writing my obituary during my lifetime, because what will be written in my death would be things I did while I was alive. So reading obituaries could just call to mind that idea that, hey fam, you're going to be not here in a bit from now, so get to it, right? And in the face of death, or in the face of, obviously you're that doesn't mean you're running towards death or anything, but in the face of seeing that thing that there's a short time I have here, it kind of pushes you to, because in the face of death, every shame goes away. Every embarrassment you want to avoid, it kind of fades away when we are faced with death, right? So that impediment, that excuse, that thing that is always coming in, it's kind of because the reality of your death, or the briefness of your time, as it were, really hasn't dawned on you. And when it does, every excuse you give will fade away, because in the face of death, everything fades away and only that which is important is left. So look at it. If there will be something I would be doing if these were my last days on earth, what would that be? If there will be something I would want to be known for, if not maybe known in the idea of fame or anything like that, but this is something I could have no regrets in saying I used my life to do this. If there's a thing like that on your mind, then there should be no excuses. Get to it. Probably read obituaries to help you, but all that is to get you to. You're already naked. In the end, when you die, nobody's going to care about your excuses. Nobody's going to care about the impediment you had. Nobody's going to care about why you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Your obituary is sealed. It is written, but because it's done. But now, before that happens, you have the opportunity to edit that, as it were. So what you have done so far in your life is your obituary, right? So what you would be doing ahead from now is kind of like editing that and adding things to it. So if you're looking back now and there are not exactly interesting things to write, or maybe not interesting in the sense of trying to please people or people having interesting things to say, but if you were reading your obituary so far now, would you be happy with the things that are written in the now? If not, or if there are things you feel should be included, then get to it, right? And share that process with everyone. You just do not know what beauty you could be creating and whose life you could be changing. So yeah, I think that will be it for this video. We'll be continuing in subsequent videos. It's I and my black book against the world.